Live. Find the volume. What is up, everybody? How's everybody doing? Happy New Year. This is gonna be fun. I'm so excited that you guys are with me today for the first Music Biz Mondays of 2020. So happy 2020, happy New Year. If you see me looking around, it is because I am mega casting today here at Business Minded Musicians. I'm your host, Jamaal, Boss Eagle Curry. So we got Facebook right here, we got YouTube right here, we got Instagram over here, doing a little mega broadcast today. As y'all can see, your boy is sporting a little bit more of the facial hair here. I've been rocking the beard for a little bit. I need to kind of trim it up, but we're doing something a little bit different. So welcome again today. Hope you all had a wonderful 2019, and I'm wishing you an amazing and even better 2020 as far as just everything, from your music business to just life and health and all those good things as well. And so today, what I wanted to talk about, just kind of jump right into it on our first Music Biz Mondays of the new year, and I hope to be more consistent. That's my goal. One of my goals this year. Kind of fell off a little bit there, as you guys will probably hear more about that as as the days and weeks kind of move along here. Share some more stuff with you guys and everything, but. I wanted to kind of talk about kind of one of those things that I feel like is a little bit of a cliche. Sometimes I feel like that, if I'm just being honest, you know what I mean? When everybody kind of gets to this part, gets the new year and everybody starts talking about goals and all these other things. And personally, I'm not a resolutions person. I'm not one of those people that's like, I'm gonna set New Year's resolutions. Excuse me, but I do see the value in goal setting and making sure that we kind of have an idea in terms of what we want to, accomplish. Because as you all have probably heard, just like I have, a million times, nobody plans to fail, but most people do fail to plan. And it's not like, you can't have a win. It's not like you can't hit a, lead off home run, just winging it or whatever. But it is good to make sure that we are approaching our music like a business. And that's what, we talk about here at Business Minded Musicians is, my slogan is helping independent musicians focus on the business of music so that you can take control of your music career and get paid to do what you love. And so that's kind of the premise or the kind of how I operate here. And so I know, again, it sounds maybe a little bit cliche and everything, but I do want to talk about, goal setting and why that's important, and really kind of making sure that we understand that it boils down. I think it even starts before goal setting, right? It starts before just kind of sitting down and saying, okay, I'm gonna write out some goals, but it really starts with the why. You know what I mean? It really kind of begins with, what is it that you even want to be about? You know what I'm saying? Like, what is it that you ultimately have a vision for? And then our goals should be kind of informed based on that. So I guess that's one of the things that I would say I'd like to start off with is just by saying, maybe it's a good idea just to take this time just to step back and say, what is it that I really want to, how do I envision kind of seeing this thing, go, in terms of my music career? You know what I mean? Like kind of the ultimate vision, is that to get a record deal? Is that to be completely self-sufficient as an independent artist? Does that mean, partially? And so one of the things I would suggest is is really for a lot of artists, and maybe some of you out there have already done this. Maybe some of you haven't ever thought about this before, but really kind of taking that, starting off with having a kind of almost like a self-assessment, right? And saying, and obviously there's all different kinds of ways to go about this, and different outcomes that can come from it. But I kind of look at it almost in kind of like three different categories, right? So, am I a hobbyist musician? Am I part-time, or maybe bivocational, right? Or do I want to be a full-time musician? And I'll kind of just break down those three a little bit. So what I mean by hobbyist is not that you don't take your music seriously. It's not that you don't, it's not that you don't put in effort into your craft and all those things. It just means that from a professional standpoint, it's probably not a top priority for you, right? Maybe you're okay with just kind of jam sessions, gigging out. There's my wife is on right now. She's watching my live feed. Hi, honey. But like I said, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're not serious about your music career, or your music or your craft. It just means that maybe you're not. It's just not something that has to be this priority or a revenue generating thing for you. So that's kind of a hobbyist musician. Secondly, is what I call either part-time or bivocational. And part-time could mean that you put in those hours, you do put in the work. Maybe you're out there gigging, maybe you're out there busking, maybe you have something set up digitally or whatever have you, but it's not maybe the sole or the main, or the kind of like revenue generating stream for you, right? And I kind of liken that to also bivocational, right? So maybe you have a job that you love, right? Maybe you have something that you do that you're like, I actually love going to this thing. Maybe it's a traditional job or 9 to 5 or whatever, or maybe you're a freelancer and you really enjoy that, and that's okay too. So it's just kind of good to identify that. So then you have, your expectations are in the right place. And then there's full-time musicians. So we have hobbyist, part-time, or bivocational, and then full-time. And so if you self-assess and you kind of decide, I think I'm full-time, let me explain what that doesn't mean. That doesn't mean it doesn't mean that that's where you currently are now. It doesn't mean that you have to be there right now. Okay. And it doesn't mean that music itself, or the recording, the performing, the selling, the streaming of your music is the only aspect of it. Okay. So I'll break those two things down a little bit in terms of full time. So it's more of a goal or a desire to be full time. So if you self-assess and you say, I want to be a full-time musician, it doesn't mean that I am currently full time. I'm making all my money as a musician, paying all my bills and stuff like that. It also can mean you could be there, and that's great. But what it could mean is also that's where you aspire to go, right? So you want to be there, in terms of like that. That's kind of the direction I feel like I want to go, right? So but it also means that you can your music career, and like I've heard, and I'm probably gonna butcher this a little bit, but I follow Ari Herstand. If you guys don't know who Ari Herstand is, he's amazing. He's the author of the book How to Make It in the New Music Business, and his new book just came out, the second edition. But he talks about, it's the sum total of your creative endeavors, and so that's kind of where I look at it and say, it's performing, it's streaming. If you are doing, if you're tutoring or giving lessons, if you have online courses, if maybe you also have a gift in photography. And so one of the things that you do is you have a niche where you are actually doing live, concert photography. Maybe you're doing, for artists, maybe you get contracted by music festivals, and so you're around music, you're around other artists, you're doing amazing photography, and then you're selling that to the festival for their marketing and promotion purposes. Maybe you're a musician, but you're also gifted in videography, and so you offer music video services or video production or things like that. So it's the sum total of your creative endeavors. Okay, so that's kind of what I look at when I say full time. So again, kind of to go back in case you're just joining me, I'm Jamaal Boss Eagle Curry, business minded musicians. I am an artist myself, and so we're talking about goal setting, for 2020, and I hate to kind of jump on that. I feel like sometimes it just feels so cliche, but I do think it's important to visit. But before kind of jumping into that, I think it's important to kind of self assess and kind of look at like where do we want to go with our music career? Where do we see the end eventually being with that? Where do we aspire to get to? So self-assessing and saying I'm either a hobbyist musician, part-time / bivocational, meaning it's some of what I do. I maybe bring in a little bit of money, but maybe I got this other thing too that I like. And then there's the third aspect is full-time. Doesn't necessarily mean that's where you are now. It's just more of a like that's where I'm trying to get to. And then also it's being full-time doesn't mean that the selling and performing of your music is the only way that you generate income. It's the sum total of your creative endeavors. So that's kind of where I would say to start. Maybe in this new year, if you haven't done that, or if you feel like you're kind of not sure where you like maybe kind of feel like directionally you're like, I'm not really sure, where I'm going or what I'm doing. That might be something that I would suggest is just starting there and asking yourself like, where really am I, going with this? Where really do I want to go with this? Because a lot of times what happens is we start to kind of internalize other people's, goals. And when we see other people, other artists, other musicians, other people out there, the experts, the gurus or whatever, and then we start to be like, well, maybe I should be doing that, or maybe that should be my goal. Maybe it should be to get a record deal, or do I have to be an indie? It's like, no, you guys know me here, business-minded musicians. I am all about being an independent musician. I'm an independent musician. That is my audience of people that I want to support and serve. But I am not anti record label either. I'm not anti those things because that's your goal. That's your dream. You have to find your own thing. So self-assess. And then, kind of look at, what do you want your goals to be? We've all kind of heard this. Sorry, I'm just kind of looking at my notes here. We've all kind of heard these things. Let me take a little sip. The importance of goal setting and all these things. And I think, to me personally, like, I don't feel like there's anything magical about it. I don't think there's anything like magical that happens like in the cosmos or whatever, like when you goal set. Like, I'm not trying to, offend anybody if that's what you believe. I do think it's actually more scientific than anything, really. And there's something I think that happens in our brains when we are public about something. Like when we put something out there, it's not like just throwing it out into the universe and then expecting something like I think a little bit differently, right? So for me, I think it's more so like if you set a deadline, if you set a goal for something, and you say, hey, I plan to accomplish this by this point, then what happens is it starts to inform your decision making. And you start to realize like, oh goodness. So like, just think about it like this. Think about if you were ever, in college or even when you're in high school or whatever, like, and you had a project or a paper due, like, right, you knew when it was due. And so, hopefully you kind of worked to that end so that, you didn't get to the end and we're scrambling. Now I was guilty of that. I'm not gonna lie. Okay. I was guilty of that plenty of times in college and stuff. But when we, like, if you say like, hey, I want to have, a new song written or a new song released or an EP done by this point, and you set that as your deadline, you set that date, you set that target. Now, all of a sudden, your brain starts working backwards and you start doing what's called reverse engineering. So, you're kind of been like, okay, I've got 3 months. Okay, but now I got to factor in these other things. I got a job or I've got other responsibilities, all these other things. And you start to take the time and say, okay, I've got to get this done by then, this done by this done by this. Does that make sense? So I don't think there's anything magical about goal setting. I do believe that honestly, it's scientific. It's scientific more than anything in terms of how we accomplish those things. So one of mine, so the way I've kind of broken it down for me this year is I kind of broke it down into kind of 4 major goals and then I have some minor goals and then kind of some offshoot things. So that's another thing too is, I'm learning too. I mean, I'm learning and growing just like you all, and learning that, people say you can't do everything, you can't do everything. But I think I saw, I think it was a tweet from, I think it was Grant Cardone, and he said, it's not that you can't do everything, you just can't start everything at once. So that's a good thing to remember too, and kind of spreading them out. And like, if you want to set your goals like by quarters or however that works for you, do that. And so for me, one of my goals for this year is to release my second album. I released my first album, as you can see back here, the Firebird album back in November of 2017. It was amazing. First experience. I didn't have anything else, prior to that. And so that was really awesome. Debuted on the Billboard charts, #5 on the Billboard Heat Seekers chart for the region, which was really cool. And again, didn't have any following, no SoundCloud, no nothing like that. Just I mean, I had a SoundCloud account, but didn't have any social media following, didn't have any mixtapes and everything like that. It was just my wife and I beating the pavement and pushing the album. And so it has been time for some time to make a new record, and so I'm working on that right now. And so I'm in a coaching mastermind program. On our last call, we were challenged to figure out, okay, what's our goal before the next call? And so my goal was, 1 to 2 more songs finished before the next call. And so I finished a song that I was working on, I think maybe that night, if I'm not mistaken, like after the call. And then I just started last night. I wrote the first verse of another song. And so our next call is in about roughly 2 weeks. So that's my goal. I'm still trying to figure out if I want to have a spring release or a summer or fall release. But I'm also, as my goal the first time around was to make the Billboard charts. I'm really gonna see if I can try to push for a Grammy consideration this time. Is that crazy? Yeah, it is. It's absolutely crazy for a no-name hip hop artist from Colorado. There's the Colorado flag behind me. Yeah. So it's lofty, but right. But that's how I dream. That's how I do things. So I do have goals as a musician. I also have goals as for business-minded musicians as well. I'm looking to do some really big things for business-minded musicians this year as well. And so one of those things is to get a studio space. And I have this kind of lofty idea. So one of the things I started doing, I started writing a project proposal. I started making calls and started reaching out to people and things like that. So just getting the ball rolling. So and would probably look at potentially maybe like into the summer, when that could possibly, we could secure a space and be able to do that. So there's different ways to go about it. Like I said, from our coaching call, it was like, before the next call, what are you going to have done? So, and then it's like, okay, then there's bigger goals too, as far as like that take a little bit more time, especially making an album. I think for the album right now, I have 3 songs done. The other song that I was working on, hey, how you doing, Cooper? The other song that I was working on last night, it's probably not going to be on the album, but could be a single, and that could help as I'm working on the album too. So I've got an idea for maybe a release of a couple of singles before the album comes out. And so really, the only thing that kind of messes with the time frame for the album is the Grammy consideration. So I just have to have the album done by September 30. I have to have all my sales in and those types of things, because then that's the consideration for Grammys 2022, I think, is what it would be. It's like, it's all weird how it works. There's time frames and how it all works, everything. So but yeah, so that's all I wanted to talk about today. I know it got a little bit long, but again, this is our first one. I'll try to keep these shorter. This was our first one for the year for business-minded musicians. So again, just talking about goal setting. Again, hate to sound super cliche. I know that's what everyone's talking about. That's probably all the stuff that's coming into your inboxes, and you're seeing that everywhere about setting your goals and goal setting, and here's a goal setting worksheet and all this other stuff. And I'm like, that stuff is cool. I'm not saying don't take part in those things, but what I am saying, what I would suggest is, if you haven't, actually start, before setting your goals, do kind of a self-assessment and inventory. That's what I would suggest. I would suggest, figuring out, what is my end goal? What's my end game here? What do I want to do? And it is going to require you to make some decisions, right? It is. And you might have to invest in some things. You might have to, invest in some resources, get some help, bring some outside help in, all those things. And a lot of that stuff, that's what I'm hoping to serve you guys with here at Business Minded Musicians, is how can you start to approach your music business like a business? So doing that self-assessment, am I a hobbyist? And is that what I want to be? And just know that that is okay. Instagram, that is okay. Facebook, that is okay. YouTube, that is okay. It is okay to be a hobbyist musician. If that's what you want to, if that's how you see yourself using your craft. And don't let anyone else tell you anything differently. That's just ridiculous. You don't have to try to make money doing it. So there's hobbyists, there's part-time or bivocational. Maybe you have a gig, maybe you have a job, maybe you have something that you love doing. That's cool too. Nothing wrong with that. Like, don't let anybody guilt you into being like, oh, you got to quit your 9-to-5. No, you don't. Like, if you love it, stay in it and have benefits and, and a steady income, you know what I mean? But, you can still, if you can still, put that time, that energy that you want to into your craft, into your art, great. And then there's people like me who are aspiring to be full-time. And again, that doesn't necessarily mean if you self-assess and you're like, I'm gonna be full-time, like, don't put this pressure on yourself. Don't make yourself feel bad if you're not there yet. Again, remember, it's about, that's where we want to get to, right? So if you're not there yet, that's okay. But you gotta remember that you're gonna have to start making decisions, and it's gonna inform your decisions of how you get there. Okay. So and so that's kind of the thing to remember with that. And then also reminding yourself that it's not about just the sales and streams and all of that makes you a full-time musician. It's the sum total of your creative endeavors. Business Minded Musicians is part of my music career as Boss Eagle. It's all wrapped into who I am. Does that make sense? And so it's how do we, if you want to have a podcast and all these things, you're making offers, if you have online courses, if you're teaching, one of the things I want to do is I want to speak. I want to speak at conferences, not, that's my main thing, but that's something that I'd love to do. And yes, I'd love to get an honorarium, what I mean, to do that, what I mean, to get paid to speak. And so, so self-assess, figure out where it is you want to go, and then let that kind of guide everything for this year. Does that make sense? Let that guide where you say, okay, this is where I am and this is where I want to go. Let that inform your decisions and what you do and how you set now those goals, because now you have the vision, right? King Solomon wrote in the Bible, without a vision, the people will perish. And, I think that had probably more to do with from a national standpoint or whatever, and leadership and those types of things. And not to be sacrilegious, but we can, kind of take that same mindset and say, okay, well, what's my vision? What's my vision for my career? What's my vision for what I want to be as a musician? And then now that, like I said, it will start to inform, the vision then informs the decision. I like that. The vision informs the decisions, right? And so you'll start to see what you need to do, and maybe some things you don't need to do. Some people you might need to unsubscribe from their email list, some things you might need to say no to, some things you might have to get just zero, just tunnel vision focused on until it's complete, like an album or an EP or a song or something like that. And, like I said, we'll try to, continue to provide helpful resources here at Business Minded Musicians. My goal is to grow Business Minded Musicians this year in some tremendous ways. And so more of that will come out as the days and weeks and months, Lord willing, will flow this year. And I'm excited. Because as I tend to say that, and this is not my words, I've heard this, but I absolutely believe it. There's never been a better time to be an independent musician. I truly believe that. I believe that we are in an age of where technology, advancements, resources, education that's available to us online and through online courses and conferences and all these things, professional development. There's never been a better time. Is there a long way to go? Yes. Okay. And some of the things in legislation and all these things, artists getting paid and all this stuff. Yeah, still got a long way to go. But I guarantee you got artists today that are around, that have been around since yesteryear, that would have loved to have started their careers or been able to have at least some of the tools that we have now when they started. You know what I mean? How much easier it might have been, how they might have been able to shortcut their process, how fast they might have been able to grow their audience, et cetera, et cetera. So I hope this video serves you guys. Again, Happy New Year. I wish you, just much success this year in growing your music career, but I'm also challenging you to show up to work, put in the work, do what you need to do. There's nothing magical about goal setting. There's nothing mystical about it. It's scientific, it's consistency, it's vision, it's goal setting, it's asking for help, it's reaching out, it's investing in yourself, and it's all those tools, all those pieces, all those building blocks that'll help us be able to grow, and so to the point where, like we say here at Business Minded Musicians, so that we can take control of our music career and get paid to do what we love. So hope this video serves you. If you're on YouTube, feel free to share this, subscribe, that'd be all awesome. Facebook, thank you. Feel free to share this video as well. It'll be right there just on my page for Business Minded Musicians. Instagram is gonna probably disappear because live videos disappear after like 24 hours. But thank you for joining me anyway today. And we'll keep, like I said, we'll keep trying to do these just every Monday. And, for me to show up, and to add value and to provide, whatever I can for you guys as well. And like I said, let's go out there and let's rock it. Let's absolutely not waste any time and not get to the end of 2020 and being like, oh, 2020 was just like 2019, which was just like 2018, which was just like 2017, right? Like, let's make this year different. Let's grow our music careers. Let's build as independent artists, as musicians, as creatives. Let's help each other. A rising tide lifts all boats. That's another Ariism. That's he always says that. I do believe that. So let's help each other. We don't have to be in competition because we all have something different. We all have a different story. We all have something different to bring, something unique to share. So, let's make this thing happen. Let's start thinking like the business. Let's start thinking business minded. Start thinking like a record label, and making decisions as an independent artist, but making decisions like a business. Does that make sense? All right. Love you guys. Hope this video serves you. And stay tuned because, big stuff's in store. So thank you very much. I'm Jamaal Boss Eagle Curry, Business Minded Musicians. I'll see you when I see you. Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. God bless. Peace.